Hi everyone, it's Saraza Art here. I'm really excited today because I'm going to get to show you something I've been wanting to show you for a while, which is a sketchbook tour. We haven't been able to do this before because I didn't have the camera set up to film it, but now I finally have an overhead camera rig. It's a really cheap one off Amazon, but I'm happy with it, so let's hope for the best and dive into this sketchbook tour. For the first sketchbook tour, we're going to go through this orange book as well as the drawings that I made before I even had a sketchbook in the first place. Here we have some old figure drawings I was doing as early as March 24th of 2024. And then you can see that we have these drawings like this. I was doing some drawing before this and I was learning. Well, I wasn't learning much. I was just trying to do the figure draws that I saw on this website that I'll link in the description, and just trying my best at it. That wasn't too bad, and I was happy I was using this cheap computer paper, so I didn't feel guilty at all about resource usage of expensive art materials. I feel the same way about this orange sketchbook. This is a cheap dollar store sketchbook that I got in Japan. And I love that I started on this cheap stuff because I just didn't feel guilty at all about drawing scribbles in it, kind of like this. This wasn't even entirely a sketchbook at the time. This was my semi-sketchbook, just put random notes from the day in it kind of book. So half of the sketchbook doesn't even have drawings in it. It just has random things from my day or things I need to know. Here we have the dates that I marked. This goes from April, so the computer paper was March. This is April to July of 2024-ish. Here's some more just figure drawings, random stuff. This one was drawn in person at a cafe. Getting to finally the good stuff. So I wanted to take my drawing to the next level, and I was looking for some guides on what to do. I saw some people recommend this thing called construction, but I was really confused at the time. I really had no idea what they meant by construction. This video I saw broke down a shoe, and then another one broke down a bird, where they're just breaking it down into shapes and calling that construction. So this would have been something similar to a rectangle, and then something like a trapezoid, and then another rectangle that we'd break a shoe down into, and then if we drew the basic shapes, then we could add like the details and the sloping curves to actually make a better shoe, like what you can see here. This was nice at the time. I think I have a different definition of construction in my mind now, but it was a nice thing to grip onto and feel like I was starting to get the basics of drawing, because I was really lost at this time. I think a theme that we're going to see throughout this orange book is that I was quite lost for a lot of it and unsure of what to do to start my art journey, and all of the computer paper drawings before were kind of in the similar vein of like, I didn't know exactly where to start. Okay, moving on. You can see that I built, say, this crab out of the same idea. This is a hexagon, that I started with, and then was building the limbs from there and the rest of the body from there. So that was kind of how I wanted to draw at this time. This is when I started using something that I learned about in this Drawing Essentials book by Deborah Rockman called a sighting stick, I believe. This is just an unbent paper clip that I marked with 2 pieces of duct tape. And the way you do it is you hold this thing up an arm's length away from you, and then you can kind of close one eye, look through it, and then determine the proportions of what you're seeing in front of you. And this was, I would say this was my starting point for learning like techniques of drawing that were going to help me out and feeling like I had a little bit of structure to my education. So you can see here with this paper towel roll, I first took the width and then the height in proportion, and then I made everything around that. These were just 2 drawings in my room that I was practicing that proportion with the sighting stick with from eye. So these were mostly real life objects in front of me that I was looking up in my room and just out and about, like so. And now we get to characters that I looked up in front of me on a computer screen. So instead of looking at objects in real life, I was now looking at a computer screen, using this sighting stick, holding it up an arm's length away in front of me, and seeing the proportions of these faces that I was drawing. Bonus points, if you can name both of these characters. They're both pretty famous, so I don't think people are going to have too much trouble with that if they're anime fans. And I remember this was hard at the time, using this sighting stick, but I'm definitely glad that I learned proportions first. I really feel like it helped me get my first steps in with learning art and gave me some structure as well as just something to work on. And it's been paying dividends because now, a year later, after having drawn these in this book, I feel much more confident about my ability to just look at stuff and understand, proportionally how it's supposed to work out. And looking back, I think these were really good exercises. These look pretty good. This was Chommang Draws, a video on the side of the face and building that from a structure. So here I was mixing a hybrid of using a structure and then also that proportion that I was talking about before. You can tell I was struggling, and even though I think these look okay because they were drawn from reference, when I try to draw on my own with structure or proportion and think about the human body and face, I was really struggling, and that's okay because I was just starting. You can see the struggle continues even with a 3/4 view. Even today, I'm not completely confident in doing stuff like this, but definitely I'm a lot better now. And it just goes to show the face is a really hard thing to draw, which I didn't know at the time. The face is more complicated than I think a lot of people give it credit for because it has all of these curves and slopes to it. When I moved to basic shapes, I found things a lot easier. So learning to draw the face has just been a long, continuous journey, as well as the rest of the body and proportions, in learning simplified forms and then applying that to the body eventually. I think anatomy and the face are generally going to be pretty advanced topics that if I were to go back in time and recommend to myself, I would say, you can have some fun figure drawing, but learn about proportions and simplified form first. Because I was struggling, and it was okay. I was being okay on myself. So that's this sketchbook right here. Thank you for joining me for episode 1 of the sketchbooks, kind of like the preamble before we learn about the big thing that was going to change my art, which is going to be in one of the later sketchbook tours. So please look forward to that. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.